Sorry for the delay, everyone. Okay, first I will cover the SpreadNET installer and setup and describe the license manager and license keys used to activate the product. Then I'll do a quick overview of the major features of v13. Then I will discuss some of the top reasons why you should use SpreadNET 13 in your applications. Then I will describe the new feature enhancements in v13 in depth and show some demo samples. Then I will discuss the product roadmap for 2020 and future plans for SpreadNET 14. Finally, at the end of the presentation, I will respond to any questions, which you can type into the chat window at any time. To start off, we'll talk about getting started with SpreadNET 13. The SpreadNET installer executable is available for download from the product website and is a web installer which shows the latest version available in online mode organized by platform with the product and product documentation for Visual Studio installed separately. Offline install packages are available for older releases or for cases where a company firewall prevents running the online installer. You can uninstall each package separately using Control Panel, Add, Remove Programs and Features, and all major and scheduled service releases can be installed side by side. After the SpreadNET 13 setup completes, the License Manager tool automatically runs. This tool is used to unlock the controls for development. To activate your product license, click the Activate action for the SpreadNET 13 product and enter the license key that you received from Grape City. Note that one license key unlocks all controls for all platforms for development and creating licensed builds on that computer. Your license key is tied to the major version release, version 13, and will continue to work across all service releases for that major version. Your license key, when activated, is tied to the particular computer on which it was activated. You may activate up to 3 machines this way. You can also use the License Manager tool to deactivate a license on one computer and activate that license key on a different computer. Now I will move on to the overview of the SpreadNET major features. SpreadNET has far too many features to go over in full detail. That would literally take all day. So I will quickly go over the most important major features for most customers. SpreadNET has a huge API of properties, objects, methods, and events enabling automation of most spreadsheet tasks. An Excel-like user interface that provides all the built-in spreadsheet functionality, like drag fill of formulas and styles. Designers integrated into Visual Studio to help with automating your creation of templates and layouts in generated code behind. Calculation engine with 450 plus built-in Excel functions and formula support for automating the analyzing, modeling, validating, etc. of your data. Cell types and cell validators for restricting and controlling the end user's input of cells. Charting and the chart designer, including support for 2D and 3D charts and advanced Excel 2016 chart types, including waterfall, funnel, box and whisker, Pareto, and histogram. Conditional formatting to quickly find and highlight important values. Data binding, including both worksheet level hierarchical binding to related data sets with child worksheets and two-way cell range binding. Rich extensibility points, including custom functions for calculations, custom cell types for editing, custom skins for appearance, and many more. Grouping and outline support, including group footers and aggregation functions. Rich cell formatting, including alignment, merging, rotation of text and borders, and built-in cell styles and themes support. Printing and print preview for advanced reporting scenarios. And tables with sorting, filtering, and advanced structured references for formulas. Now, I'll go over some of the top reasons to use SpreadNET 13 in your applications. Spreadsheets are super powerful tools that enable the quick creation of custom calculators or other form type interfaces, as well as reporting and analysis and many other use cases, like a superpowered abacus for the trained user, and applications for those users need to supply the familiar Excel-like user interface and features these users expect. Spread.NET is the most advanced and powerful set of spreadsheet tools for .NET development ever created. Spreadsheets critical for business should be secured inside a custom application with controlled and limited access to ensure their integrity and soundness of their formulas and structure. And Spread.NET is simply the best. Nowhere else will you find these new features like dynamic arrays and visual functions, which I will talk about shortly. Now it's time for the deep dive into the new features of Spread.NET 13. This is the fun part. V13 introduces many new features that were not available in Spread.NET 12. Dynamic arrays are a very powerful new calculation feature with several new functions that enable formulas to return a range of results that spills into adjacent cells. The new shape engine is 100% compatible with the shapes of Excel and includes all built-in Excel shapes for import and export in XLSX. Shape property bindings enable your shapes to use simple formulas to bind properties and automate your shapes to create custom UI tools or data visualizations. Slicers for tables are a new user interface tool for filtering a table. These can also be imported and exported in XLSX. Copy-paste enhancements include support for copy-paste of cell ranges and shapes from Excel to Spread or vice versa. The new visual function class enables creating custom data visualizations inside cells that are integrated directly with the calculation engine and available for use in cells using a formula with custom arguments. The new XLookup and XMatch functions with enhanced search mode 0 for all can return all matching results in a dynamic array. Automatic formatting of values as in Excel, for example, the formula equal now will format the cell as a date, and then referencing that cell in another cell will also format that cell as a date. Formula editing using the formula text box control now inserts structured references to table cells, which makes formulas much more readable. Background images are now supported directly in the new iWorkbook interface. The new Before RightClick event allows for customizing the context menu, and auto-extending row headers automatically increase the width of the row header to show the entire row label value as the user scrolls further down the sheet. Now I will go over each of these in more detail, starting with dynamic arrays, my personal favorite of the new enhancements. Dynamic arrays are a powerful new calculation feature which enables cell formulas to return arrays of values that can spill into adjacent empty cells. Dynamic array formulas can spill the results into adjacent empty cells below or to the right. If there is a non-empty cell in the range, then the formula shows the new spill error. This feature changes the way that certain formulas calculate, so it must be enabled explicitly using calcfeatures.dynamicArray and is not enabled by default. When this feature is enabled, there are 7 new calculation functions supported for dynamic arrays: filter, rand array, sequence, single, sort, sort by, and unique. The new spilled range operator, which looks like the hash or number sign, can be used to specify the entire spilled range in a formula using just the top left cell. The new explicit intersection operator, which looks like the @ sign, is used to return a single value from an array or range. These new functions can be used in many useful ways, from quickly and easily filtering entire tables to generating tables like the car loan interest table, or generating cross-tab reports with 3 quick and easy formulas. I will now show some quick examples demonstrating the power of dynamic arrays in the new Dynamic Arrays demo sample included with SpreadNET 13 WinForms. Okay. This example shows the filter function, the new filter function. This is, I think, the most powerful of the new dynamic array functions. The filter function can filter an entire range of values based on whatever include criteria you specify. And the syntax for the include criteria is quite simple. You can see an example of what the syntax looks like here. You just specify the range, equal, and then the value. And you can use other functions in the formula as well. Like if you want to check for a date, you can use the date function for the comparison. If there are more than one criteria that you want to filter on, you can combine multiple criteria together using the star operator to create an AND condition between two conditions, like this example shows. Or you can create an OR condition using the plus symbol. I'm going to put a different formula here to change this to search for products that have a product line of spread.net or have a product of deployment license. And that will return me a table of 9 rows because it's excluding this one and this one and this one from the results. Now, another thing you can do with dynamic arrays that I think is especially cool is create dependent drop-down lists. Here's an example that has a drop-down list that's created using a dynamic array here in this cell. This list is dynamically generated. In this cell, there's another list that's dynamically generated based on the results from the value in this cell. So this formula references the cell H5 here to create this list here. So as I change this value, the contents of this list change. And if I select spread.net here, the results show none found because there's no such thing as a deployment license for spread.net. Another thing you can do is create searchable dropdowns. This example creates a searchable dropdown that shows just the values that contain an A using this dynamic array generated here. If I change the value to R here, now it's going to show me just the names that have an R. There's so many things you can do with dynamic arrays. I won't go over all of these. This is another of my favorites. All it's doing is generating lists of dates using the date function together with the sequence function, and then generating different formats using references to this dynamic array that's spilling over here in B5. And this forecasting example is a really excellent example of what you can do with dynamic arrays and the power of dynamic arrays. This shows a number of different formulas calculating the same thing in different ways. This one calculates the entire 5-year projection total using one formula. It's the same value as what's calculated here, just calculated in a different way. Dynamic arrays are just an incredible new feature, and it's going to take a while to get used to them, but it's definitely worth the effort. The power of dynamic arrays and the abilities that it gives you and the optimizations to the calculations is just unbelievable. it can eliminate lots of redundant extra formulas and let you consolidate your formulas down to just a very few very powerful formulas. There's one more I want to show here, the crosstab report, that generates a table with 3 formulas. This one uses the transpose function with sort and unique to generate these headers for the columns in the table. This formula uses just sort and unique to generate the row header labels. And this uses SUMIFs with 2 references, one to a vertical dynamic array and one to a horizontal dynamic array, to create a table of 3 rows by 2, or 3 columns by 2 rows. Really, really powerful feature. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some recent blogs that I posted about dynamic arrays that have some useful tips and tricks that you might find very useful. The first is a detailed overview of some common use cases for each of the new dynamic array functions. The next one explains in detail how to create the cascading and searchable drop-down data validation lists that I showed in the demo. And the last one explains in detail how to create that crosstab report with dynamic arrays using those 3 easy formulas, which I also showed in the demo. I would recommend checking out these blog posts. They're really great. Okay, next. The new shape engine supports all built-in Excel shapes and replaces the old shapes engine, which is still supported for backwards compatibility. So the new shape engine must be explicitly enabled using the enhanced shape engine property. The new shape engine supports many enhancements over the old one, including multiple selection and grouping, connection points and connecting shapes with lines and arrows, rich copy and paste of shapes, and import and export of shapes in XLSX files. Create richly formatted cell callouts, flowcharts, process diagrams, and more using the Spread Designer tool. Shape property bindings allow shape properties to be bound to cell values using formulas. Properties that support formula binding include the auto shape type, text effect, fill, line, and left top height and width. The formulas can use any built-in calculation functions and reference cells in the worksheets. Formulas can be used to automate the shapes based on custom conditions to create visual indicators for KPIs, dashboards, or other dynamic custom data visualization. Now I will show some demo samples of the new shape engine, a flowchart, and a car insurance claim. Once again, these demos are part of the new Control Explorer. By the way, this Control Explorer demo sample that I'm showing here is included with the product. When you install the product, there's an executable for this installed as well. And we also install the full source for this demo in C# and VB. So you can load this entire demo and run it in debug in either VB or C#. Okay, the shapes are down here. The flowchart, this is one of my favorite flowcharts from XKCD, How to Write Good Code. You can see how the shapes are connected with the arrows. Moving a shape will automatically move the arrows. Shapes support rotating, moving, resizing, and undo and redo. This example was created in Excel, actually. I used Excel to create these custom shapes. that look like the blown out parts of the car. These shapes are created in Excel using VBA code in the workbook. And then that workbook is imported into Spread here. The workbook is imported into Spread using a feature called document caching, which makes the Spread control retain all of the unsupported content like VBA code in memory so that it can be written out again when the workbook is saved. So you can actually edit this in Spread and make changes and save it, and it will load in Excel looking exactly like it is here in Spread with all of your changes. And it will still have the VBA code that was used to create those shapes initially in Excel as well. On sheet 2 here, we have some values to which these particular shapes properties are bound using the shape property bindings in order to make sure that they show in the correct location over top of the image of the blown out car here. So that's an example using the shape property bindings as well. It's also binding the line property to show a solid blue line of width 1. So you can see the syntax of how that works. All right. Moving on. Slicers are a user interface tool for filtering a table. Slicers require enabling the new Shapes engine using the Enhanced Shape Engine property. All built-in Excel slicer styles and themes are supported in the Spread Designer tool and in the new API. You can create and initialize new slicers in code, or you can show the Insert Slicers dialog for the end user in your application. Slicers allow the user to see the filter values and use multiple selection, for example, Control-click and Shift-click to select the filter items. Now I'll show a quick demo of slicers for tables. Okay, here you see an example of a table with a slicer created for this country column. If I select a subset of these countries, it will restrict the list to show only those I've selected. You can clear the filter by clicking that clear filter icon in the upper right. You can change the selection mode by clicking this. Now each click will toggle whether the value is selected instead of doing drag. Oh, drag select still works too. You can insert a new slicer. Here's what it looks like, the built-in Insert Slicers dialog. You can insert a new slicer for city. And both can be used at the same time to filter on multiple columns. All right. Copy-paste enhancements. The copy and paste enhancements require explicitly enabling using the rich clipboard property. When enabled, this feature affects copy and paste from Excel to Spread and from Spread to Excel. This feature enables copy and paste of cell ranges, including formatting, formulas, etc., from Excel to Spread, and copy and paste of shapes and pictures from Spread to Excel or from Excel to Spread. Now, I have asked about supporting exporting the cell range from Spread to Excel, including all formulas and formatting, and the guys are telling me that that's hard and it's difficult to do. But I'm still working with them. Hopefully we can get that added in V14. That is a feature I would like to add. The new visual function class, this is another of my favorite enhancements. It enables creation of custom data visualizations and custom sparklines in cells. This is actually an enhancement to the custom function feature that allows you to create a custom calculation function that can be used in cell formulas. A visual function is referenced in a cell formula using the prefix VF, as shown in the example here, before the visual function name, and can accept custom arguments. You can implement code in the class to draw custom content in the cell, or to apply style settings to the cell based on the arguments or calculation result. So you can use a visual function for two different things. You can use it to actually draw particular content inside of the cell, or you can use it as sort of a dynamic custom style that's based on criteria passed into the function or the arguments passed into the function, or based on values in the cells, any logic that you want to implement, really. I will show the demo sample showing this QR code generator that you see here, which is included in the Control Explorer demo samples. For some reason, I'm not able to see it. I think my taskbar is not being hidden correctly here. Oh yeah, this one's up here. Here we go. Custom data visualization, yes. I think the code for this one looks pretty interesting. You can see there's really not a lot of code involved. All it's really doing is creating the visual function and then setting the formulas. And the meat of the code that's in this class here, I don't think I can show it to you in the Control Explorer because it's not included in the code tab here, but you can look at it in the demo samples, the source that's installed with the product. It's really not that much code. It's using this QR code function visualizer, which I think was from another third-party open source library. But any content that you want could be drawn in here. You could use this to create custom sparklines, and that's actually one of my plans for V14, is to enhance V14 with many of the built-in sparklines that SpreadJS supports that we don't support in SpreadNET yet, using these visual functions. Okay, XLookup and XMatch. These are new calculation functions that are recently supported in Excel. These are new improved versions of the lookup, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and match functions. Spread supports a special custom search mode 0 for all, which returns all matching items in a dynamic array for XLookup. This is very similar to what you can do using the filter function. Excel recommends using the filter function for that particular use case. The power behind using the search mode 0 for all with the XLookup function in Spread is that it enables you to also use wildcards in the search, I believe, which isn't supported by filter. I'll now show the demo sample included in the Control Explorer demos for XLookup. Okay, XLookup is superior to the other lookup functions for several reasons. I have them listed here in this demo. It can perform vertical lookups or horizontal lookups, depending on the orientation of the lookup array and return array that you specify. It can perform lookups whether or not the lookup array is sorted, if you use search modes 1, -1, or 0. It does not require referencing the entire range containing the lookup array and the return array values. You can reference only those two particular ranges. XLookup arguments automatically adjust when columns or rows are inserted that move the lookup array or return array. So you don't have that problem with a hard-coded index number in the arguments like HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP, where you have to go and edit the formula when you've added or removed rows or columns. And finally, we have that enhancement to support the new search mode 0 all, returning all matches when dynamic arrays are enabled. There's a number of examples in this sheet showing various ways of using XLookup. The XMatch sheet also contains very similar examples showing using XMatch. These functions are very useful, and I highly recommend exploring them and using them in your worksheets. Okay, I also did publish a blog recently about visual function and about XLookup and XMatch, and I believe those are linked in the slides here. Yeah, there's a link for the blog on visual function at the bottom of that slide, and about XLookup and XMatch at the bottom of this slide. And we will be sharing the slide decks with you. Okay, automatic formatting formula values. This feature copies some convenient Excel behavior that automatically applies a default format to the cell when you type a formula in the cell. Cells will now automatically format the value based on the formula in the cell. For example, formulas like equal now, returning a date value, will automatically format the cell as a date. Formulas referencing another cell that is formatted will automatically use that formatting. You can still set a format to the cell which would override the automatic formatting. Okay. Formula editing will now automatically use structured references to improve the readability of the formulas. This feature requires using the formula text box control with the FP spread control and attaching the formula text box control to the FP spread using the attach method. This feature applies only to references to table cells, table columns, ranges of table columns, or if the entire table is referenced in the formula. To use the @ syntax to reference a value from the current row in a table column, the formula cell must be in the same row as the table row. This feature makes formulas easier to read by using the table column names instead of normal cell references. For example, equal table 1 bracket @ add to mailing list, close bracket. That's a lot more readable than equal R275 C29. Okay, background image in iWorksheet. This is a minor enhancement as background images in worksheets were already supported in SpreadNET 12. We've moved the implementation for the worksheet background image to the core spreadsheet module and exposed new API in the iWorksheet interface. Note that Excel does not support background image layout like Spread does, so the tiled background image layout can only work in Spread. The new before right-click event enables the application to customize the built-in context menus to enable or disable options, add new menu items, etc. This event fires before Spread handles the right-click and the event handler can cancel default behavior and show a different context menu if required. And finally, auto-extending row height. This enhancement copies the behavior of Excel when the user scrolls down a very large sheet. As the row labels begin to exceed the width of the row headers, the row header width is automatically increased to show all the text and avoid clipping. And that is all the new features in V13. I'll quickly summarize all these new features I just described. We have the new dynamic arrays and new dynamic array functions, the new shape engine, the shape property bindings, the slicers for tables, the copy-paste enhancements, the new visual function class, the new XLookup and XMatch functions, the automatic formatting of formula values, the formula text box inserting structured references to table cells, the background image in iWorksheet. That should say iWorksheet, not iWorkbook. The new before right-click event and auto-extending row headers. That concludes the new SpreadNET V13 features, which takes us up to what's next and the roadmap for SpreadNET 2020. Coming in May 2020 will be SpreadNET Service Release 1, followed in August 2020 by SpreadNET Service Release 2. Then in November 2020, SpreadNET 14 will be released, which will be included with any developer license for V13. The V14 release will include .NET Core 3 WinForms and WPF controls, more feature enhancements, including new built-in sparklines and built-in visual functions. And please send me your feature requests. I am always interested in hearing about new feature requests. And that concludes the SpreadNET 13 webinar. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, hi, Sean. Thanks for the presentation. There were a couple questions. I think I kept up with them during your presentation. I can kind of summarize. One was regarding the background image. Since it